We are a Hungarian organization, NGO, and we are active in the field of youth work and training youth workers. And we have met a lot of great organizations and experts. So we decided to not just do what we do regularly, like experiential learning, outdoor education, working with disadvantaged youth, but learn from others. And we are part of a partnership of different organizations who work on improving the quality of youth work and quality of the training and educational resources youth workers have at hand. And this webinar series is part of it. And we started to invite experts from different organizations, and we are very, very happy that Nerijus accepted our invitation. They are part of this partnership, and they have another partnership, which is super exciting. So I hope that Nerijus will tell a bit later on about this. I'm really hopeful for this webinar and also for their content, because usually I see youth work explores play and games in a kind of the traditional youth work scheme. And I really hope that this webinar will widen our understanding of what's possible and how to approach learning, playing, and games. I just pass the word to you, Nerijus, and thank you for coming today. And thank you all for joining us on this webinar.
Thank you, Arpi. Thank you, Eti, for creating this opportunity. We collaborate with your organization for a while, and I'm always appreciating this experience and the opportunities we create ourselves with you and all together. And I'm happy to share our GameOn project experience and the results and all the created resources for the ones who are interested in facilitating game design for inclusion. So today I will share some of the products we created and also some of the reflections and outcomes we came up together with partners. I'm here on behalf of Nectarus, a small NGO where we work together with our team. And the GameOn project is a partnership of 4 countries and 6 partners from Lithuania, from Spain, Catalonia, from Serbia, and from Italy. We are together putting some ideas on how game design can be used as a tool to promote critical thinking, participation, and inclusion. And another thing what I do in my work, it's working with Cities of Learning Partnership and Network. So today, when starting this meeting, I got really excited seeing people whom I didn't see from a while from different Cities of Learning or some meetings we had within Cities of Learning. So that will be something what I will share as well, how we use Cities of Learning platform to promote game design materials, resources, educational, open resources, and so on. And usually when I'm invited to do anything online or offline, I use rather participatory methods. So I will invite you in some activities where I will ask your participation. I will have few tools to share with you. So I hope that's all right, because again, I think we learn through sharing, we learn through conversations, we learn through doing things together. I would like to start from inviting you to think, because next thing I will ask you to introduce yourself, say your name and maybe where you come from, and mention what kind of player type you are. But to think about this, I will screen share a video with some of our participants from activities sharing what type of player type they are.
My name is Nežana, and my player type is, I think, between the socializer or socializing, socializer, and explorer.
Okay, I am Marco, and my player time I think was killers, but during my learning session I prefer to change, and I am socializer now.
My name is Alexander, I'm from Serbia, and my player type is somewhere in between of explorer and achiever.
Okay, I'm Noemi, and I think I'm more a socializer and an explorer person, because I really like to interact with people, with the games, and with the content.
My name is Ivan, and I like to cheat at games.
I'm Nerijus, and I think and I believe I'm an explorer because I really like to discover unknown, go to places where are not yet known for me, for others. I also like to know what are the boundaries, but also break them.
My name is Xavier Moratonas, and I'm not sure that I am a player type. Maybe it's between social and explorer, but I'm not sure.
So that's a bit of impressions from our activities where people shared about their player type. So I invite you to quickly say your name and where do you come from and what type of player are you, if you can come up. You could hear some socializers, some killers, achievers, explorers, and it comes from one of the models explaining how people play games, how do they seek their goals through gameplay. So what type of player are you? Maybe Aida, starting from you.
Yeah, okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Aida. I'm from Spain. And if I think what kind of player I am, I think it's a combination between socializer, explorer, and maybe a little bit of killer.
Good. I would call then Laura, if you can unmute, if you want to unmute. All right. Laura, it's okay. You can also type in a chat. I will go for Maria.
Hello, I'm Maria. I'm from Romania. We are old friends because we already know we know each other. What kind of player I am? I think I'm a kind of explorer.
Thank you, Maria. Indeed, we know each other from previous activities, and you keep exploring. Yes. Wim, how about you?
Hello there, I'm Wim Simon from the Netherlands, Rotterdam, and I think I'm a pioneer. Yeah, I like to do even games which even are not invented yet, and I like to develop them as well. So that's my goal in my game. So I like to be.
Cool, welcome. We need more game developers and creators for sure. Yeah. Attila, how about you?
Hi, I'm Attila from Hungary, and I'm not sure I can recall all the types, but surely I'm an explorer, probably killer as well, maybe this, but later probably we know more about this.
Thank you. Thea, your turn.
Okay, so hello, my name is Thea, I'm coming from Spain, and I am a very, very competitive person, but I try to control this side of myself, so I would say I am a social silent killer, kind killer more than silent one. Something like this.
Undercover killer, pretending to be nice, but whenever you can strike, you strike.
Yes.
Good. Mark, how about you?
Yes, good evening. I'm Mark from the Netherlands, working with Cities of Learning. I have a lot of contacts with Nerijus. I'm definitely a social explorer. I really like to make use of gamification, games for educational purposes.
Welcome. And I will try to pronounce, but I may fail. Afita Bulut.
Hello, everyone. I'm Afita from Turkey. I think I'm combination socializer and explorer.
Nice, welcome. Julia.
Hello again. I'm Julia. I'm from Italy. And I think I oscillate between socializer and achiever, depending on the mood.
Cool. And Julia is also part of our GameOn partnership. They are from NUR organization in Sardinia, in Italy. So happy to have you here. If I will lie something, you can correct me. All right?
Sure.
Then, Moke Kozer, or Kozer Moke. I don't know where is the name, where is the surname. Sorry for that.
That's fine. Hi, I'm Anita from Hungary. I think on one hand, I'm an explorer because I like exploring new way of learning and new places. But on the other hand, I'm a socializer as well.
Good, welcome. And then Ilaria, please. All right. If you later want, you can share. If you also want to share a bit of more organizational background, I invite you to use a chat so you can write a bit where do you come from, more professional field, maybe which area of work you do. So you can put even a link of your organization. Again, I think one of the benefits of meeting us online is also networking. So if someone will get some interesting thoughts and ideas, then you can actually connect later on. Okay, I would like now to introduce GameOn project and what we have done and created, so you would get context and a bit of information what we are sharing. I'm ready to stop at any moment for questions. And later on, with some of the created materials, you will have a chance to interact more. So we'll go through that part also a bit later from after. Yeah. So let me start the presentation. Game on. So our main kind of approach is that we see games and especially game design as a tool for inclusion in educational context. We are partners from Spain, Italy, Lithuania, and Serbia, and together we like to do play games a lot, but also use games as a tool. So the whole project is all about promoting social inclusion and critical thinking in our local communities through game design. Like Arpi was introducing, in our context, in non-formal education context, we often use games to play, to socialize, to spend time with people, to relate to one another. Sometimes we use educational games created by someone, or we create ourselves games. So we use games as learning tool. And here we want to level up and look at how the creation of games together with young people, with learners, with adults, can be beneficial to develop some competences, achieve more inclusion and participation. With the whole project GameOn, we want to scale up game design which promotes social inclusion. So we just don't want to have just game design for the sake of creating more games, but actually using game design process to include people with various abilities, diverse backgrounds, learners with motivation and interest to develop themselves. We also want to help to see games as a way to develop social competences, values, and rights by young people, for young people, but also adults in our communities. Yeah, we see games also as a tool, but also an opportunity to bring social themes to table, to educational activities inside and outside of formal education, as well as non-formal education and youth work. And how we want to do, we want to create, and actually we already created a lot of resources and materials for educators who want to use game design to facilitate such process to achieve wider goals. So how we were doing and what we were doing so far, this is a puzzle where we put together things, yeah. We started from mapping good practices where people, organizations are using game design to include groups of young people, learners, adults in the process. Then based on that mapping of good practice, we recorded podcasts, created material for a platform to share all the insights from good practices, created PDF manual and video tutorials. We also worked on implementing training modules, local and international ones. So video, what you saw, included people from international training activity for multipliers, but some of them, they were coming from local training modules. So if someone is interested how to train and provide education to educators, we have training modules available. So you can see what kind of themes we approached, which methods perhaps we used in training modules. So for that, we have separate activities on the platform. We also created, with the help of a company which is involved in testing games, in creating games, in helping organizations to validate their game concepts, they created gamified tool which allows to somehow measure and help to evaluate competences learned through game design. So the tool itself, it's gamified, so people are involved in a journey through different islands, focused on different areas of competence. And then the tool itself has ways to engage people who create games. Yeah, and we are still in phase of testing that tool. So in case you have in next months or half a year an opportunity to use the gamified tool, you can do so. And then we did research on inclusion. And then we also collaborated with University of Barcelona to establish some research methods helping to understand how different game design practices bring good impact, as well applied research to our own project activities in order to understand how to make good impact when scaling game design. So this is what we so far did last 2 years, and we still have good 1 year, 2023, to scale up all the good things created by this project and partners. So I mentioned briefly, there is a series of podcasts which you can listen to people speaking about their experiences of involving others in creating different types of games, from video games to escape rooms to tabletop games, simulation games, role-play games. So it's really interesting to listen how different organizations approach, and podcasts are recorded. I think there are 10 of them, so you can listen. Based on mapping good practices and making qualitative interviews with people who use game design for inclusion, we created several methodological models which allows to better evaluate how you approach game design. And we have different variations inside. So it shows how much the people who are involved as end users are also involved in the process of game design. So different types of models, and actually it also depends on the context in which game design is practiced. So there are examples of school context where it's linked more to subjects, where game design is used to understand better curriculum, or for example, where game testing only is used to verify if the game ideas, mechanics, and dynamics are enough good for players to enjoy and benefit. So it's only limited fraction of process used to participate and encourage critical thinking. So these models are available in several languages of all partners. And if you want to use them and you perhaps want to translate to your languages, we can collaborate providing editable versions of these posters. And each poster will have also an example of game design process. Then learning platform, we created the platform GameOn for everyone interested in game design and how to apply game design for inclusion. I will show that platform also towards the end of this meeting. But here in this platform, we placed all possible resources we created as open educational resources. So any organizations can use it. If you want to adapt them or want to translate, please do so. If you need our help in accessing editable versions of something, we can provide. So again, if game design is something what you want to do and you want to use tools created by us, we are available for collaboration, especially in this 2023, because that's also our year to share everything. I mentioned local and international training courses. Every partner had a pilot phase of training courses in national context. And then we met for international training course. We invited some people from local courses. Local courses were mostly focused on training people how to facilitate game design process, while the international training course focused on how to support the game design process itself and become a multiplier of such approach. Yeah. So people also learn how to disseminate, how to create activities for others to learn game design as a process. And then the final international event we had last autumn was in Sardinia, where we invited experts in game design to meet up and share good practices, games created by groups, by teams, reflect on what helps when creating games together with people from different backgrounds, different abilities, how to make sure that this process is still enjoyable, beneficial, and arrives to a good, at least prototype, if not a well-produced game. And we just finished a manual on game design for inclusion, where we put all together all the resources in a PDF format. So if anyone is preferring to have that type of medium to learn something, to use it, you will find that guide perhaps useful for your practices to improve, to reflect, to maybe use something from our research and practices. So Game Design for Inclusion educational manual is available. And then we have really mapped and tried to measure what we are doing in our project in order to celebrate, share, be proud of, but also showcase what we can do as partnership all together. So this is what I plan to share. And now I will turn more to interactive part with you, and later on show a bit how we adopt the Cities of Learning platform, which also is part of the thinking. If people learn a lot by designing games, why not to use badges to recognize what people learn, what skills they develop, what competences they showcase? So that's how we link also Cities of Learning and recognition. So if people learn a lot, let's value, validate, and recognize that learning. Yep. Maybe before I turn to you with more interaction, I would like to first stop and ask whether you have immediate questions to what I shared, what I told to you, maybe something you want to also share from your side, something triggered your reflection or thinking. So I want to make a stop before going to the next part.
Apita put a question into the chat if we can access this research somehow.
Yes, definitely, and that's what I will be sharing. I can already share where all the resources are available. Let me just copy paste the link to the site. GameOn. Yes. So all available on this project website with a lot of resources. So maybe I will use the opportunity to share also on the screen. So basically, that's where it is. You can find game design practices, game design tools, game design learning playlists. So we organize everything what we believe is important to facilitate game design for inclusion into online learning resources, activities. So for example, I will be sharing with you, I will ask you to think about these methodological models. So you can find all of them introduced one by one and by videos also. So each of the activity here introducing a specific approach will have a visual and description and also a video. So all these resources are freely available if you want to use, as long as you can mention that it's coming from the source on this platform. And you can also engage with the content. So if you learn something, you want to get a badge from what you learn or you use, you can also apply for a badge. And some badges will be having self-approval kind of reflection type, and some will get notification to our pockets, badge wallets, and will review and give feedback. Okay, I would like now to have a bit of interaction with you on games, game design, and your experiences. So I would like to share with you Padlet, which is one of the tools I'm using when online. And if everything goes well, you should arrive to this page, which is now blank. It says little, but it has few critical questions to start our conversations. When we think about games, we need to say what makes a game a game. Yeah. And then another question we ask, because we are in educational context, what makes a game to be an educational game? Yeah. So I invite you to have a moment of reflection and put some keywords using sticky notes. So you can choose color, you just click on side and then type in keywords and place the sticky note playful experience. Let's say an example, what makes a game to be a game when it's a playful experience? I can play and experience something. Yeah, that makes a game to be a game. Without this, I think game cannot be a game if there is no playful experience. So I invite you to have a moment of reflection a little bit and start placing some post-its to the relevant questions. Okay, so I give you a couple of minutes, and when you are putting or placing, we will have a conversation a bit, looking at what you have identified as components, elements of a game, and then what makes a game to be educational game. I will put some background music. All right, let's have a look. I was also replacing the text-based input to post-it, so just to have it more clear for everyone. All right, so we have here on one side the post-its describing elements, components of what something can be called a game, and it's all about combination of all of these. So it should be some rules, some objectives, aims within the game. Often it's a imaginary world. Often, and some of you posted, it's about having a challenge. And it's all about experience, which should be flow, it should be fun, it should be competitive, it should be engaged and help to learn, it provide some purpose of socialization and fun, and the game should be rewarding somehow. So these are the main ones I see, and it's played in teams, although solitary ones, but very often we experience games in teams. On the other side, not every game is an educational game, and here are other components, elements which makes a game to be an educational game, where again it has clear learning objectives. This time, where is a process of tracking progress, monitoring, where is some recognizable educational content. It has a clear context or link to the context. It is a reflection. Often it is facilitated by moderator or trainer, where is an evaluation and feedback moment or session. You can say that players develop some skills, some knowledge is passed on, information. So all these things, learning outcomes can be identified. So here we enter into the domain of learning. So we use games. Any ordinary game can become a learning material, depending what you do with that game, and players, what they do with the experience of gameplay. So using games, it's one of the first steps to do in educational context, yeah. But more it can be done when we create educational games. So educational games would have specific learning objectives, content embedded, and would have a particular way of using it. So usually it would be in the context with the aim for players to play the game and learn something, and often moderated by facilitators, trainers. That's what we as organizers of GameOn also recognize, the power of games and uniqueness of educational games. And now I would like to invite you to go to the next one. I want to ask, and here if you're okay to put either a name or a symbol, you can also draw if you want, your response to the questions on this board. How often do you play games? That's one. Often, sometimes, seldom, never. And if we can take a scale of one month, perhaps, yeah? How often in a month you play games? And then, have you ever created an educational game? So being participant or developer of a game. Yeah, so that's one role we take sometimes in our life experiences. We join teams, groups, exercises, activities where we together create a game, in brackets, educational game, yes, no. And have you facilitated the game design process where it's not you creating a game, but a team, a smaller group, bigger group, or it is a process where you facilitate game design. Yeah. So please find your place on this continuum and questions and answers. And then I will invite you to share a little bit from your experiences. What does it mean? All right. From the first question responses, I can see that we have quite a number of people who play games often, sometimes few, but you have gameplay experiences clearly. And I think that's one of the important elements to start practicing game creation and furthermore facilitation. So what we recognize, one important experience is needed for game design and game design facilitation is actually loving to play games and having played it often, diverse games, because that builds your understanding what type of games can be. You can understand different types of mechanics, dynamics, elements of the game, diversity of narratives, stories games convey. So the more you play, the more resources you have already in your experience to create games, educational games included, and then facilitate game design process. Yeah. So anyone wants to share a bit your experiences of gameplay or game design? Anything you want to share with the rest of us?
Well, I would like to share one I developed in 2015 for my organization Albda. We had to make the EQF and the NLQF more visible and known with our teachers and the teams and the managers. So we developed some kind of a game. So they worked with the visible and measurable behavior that was developed for level 3 and level 4. So we had a sort of a game around that. And that was my first experience to develop something around the theme with an educational theme.
Thank you, Wim, for sharing. And you are coming from the educational context where all these abbreviations are well known. So maybe you can clarify what does it mean, this EQLF, which I even cannot remember well, just for the sake of understanding, yeah?
The European Qualification Framework, we all know, which are 8 levels. And we all know that like Scotland has 13 levels of education, but in 2008, the European Commission embraced the EQF. So that's the European Qualification Framework, which describes the visual and measurable behavior of people on that level. So, and the VET schools are level 1, 2, 3, and 4. 5 and 6 are the higher education, and 7 and 8 are the universities.
Good. Thank you, Wim, for clarifying. Anyone wants to share your game experiences, game design, gameplay, facilitation, game design?
Very, very briefly, I think that as a facilitator of learning, in non-formal education, we're always designing, reinventing new games adapted more to the new context with the groups that we work with. So we are always bringing on board games for this non-formal educational purposes. So I think we all did a lot of, we are gamers, I believe, because when you first asked us, did you ever invented a game? I was thinking like, no, I didn't. But then I thought, yes, I did a lot because we do it all the time, no? And the question about if you ever facilitated the process of creating a game, we did during the pandemics, we did a Gincana online among 5 cities in the region with young people. So we were like facilitating this process of how to engage peers, because you could not be together with more than 2 people, so it was peers. And we were inventing different challenges based on gamification in different cities. So more or less, it was like this.
Good, very nice. We have another project, similar post-pandemic project in Cities of Learning, where people created art escape games in the cities. So based on how to say existing legend or myth or some sort of urban legend, you know, they created a game which is played in the city. To discover it, they need to solve some puzzles and so on. So in different cities, they were doing this. And I think you took a special challenge to do that with a bigger group in pandemic time. So it's really incredible. Yeah. I think Arpi, you wanted to share?
Yes, I was part of a project where participants of the project designed tabletop games, board games, and I just discovered that while as youth workers and actively involved facilitators in playing games, it's kind of easy to design, redesign, and adapt a game. But when it's just that type of game that you design and you pass it on and people just play with it, you need to think a lot, design a lot, and also there was quite a lot of need for giving it to people at an early stage and see how they use it, and based on the feedback you learn. So it was a very, very new experience for all facilitators involved. It was a new territory for us compared to what we do as playing with people as a part of our job.
Thank you. Anyone else? Peter is sharing in chat about working at university and use some games for courses, especially strategy games, simulation games. Indeed, that's one of the ways to include in education. It's using the games which are built on specific real-life kind of models, just maybe enriched with narrative, with some roles and everything. Julia, please.
Yes, I feel a bit like, since I'm part of this project, it feels like I'm oversharing a bit, but I actually got into non-formal learning through game design. My first projects were about designing games and educational games specifically. So I came in from that side, and then I also facilitated the process of creating games for other people. And actually, we just did one local training course a few weeks ago. So it's a really nice also thing for me to see, having been through it more than once, and then seeing how it works with other people and how it applies, and what I can learn also using my own experiences and help other people with. It's a very rewarding process, I think.
Thank you. And meanwhile, Wim is sharing the link to European qualifications frameworks if you want to understand the context and content of game created by Wim. All right, I will move on. So I asked you about your gameplay experiences. How often do you play games? I asked you, have you ever participated in creating a game? And then I asked, have you ever facilitated game design process? Yeah, so for you to understand different levels of activities you can do with games if you want, and with goals, educational goals in mind. Yeah. So I would like to introduce one important outcome of our project. After researching good practices, together with partners, we elaborated methodological models which may help to evaluate and explain level of participation and engagement of people who create games. Yeah. So I will run through it quickly, but you can really go deeper, because when I will share resources, you will get them available. Yes. So we call it GameOn Memos. Okay. So on the third Jamboard, you will see visuals from different models which we identified through research of practices. We try to name every model in a rather positive way, recognizing that due to some contextual, institutional, or time constraints, maybe sometimes it's not possible to achieve higher level of engagement, involvement, but nevertheless, it's worth trying and doing. Yes. So we try to really be more appreciative. Yeah. So there are some ways of practicing game design where participants of the process are fully involved in all the stages of the process. So to create a game, you need to have some sort of structure behind, which supports the process itself. So we talk about time frame, resources, identifying who will be involved, and all these, how we will fund this process. So structure of the game design project. If you go to more professional approach, often it would be a company doing everything, or independent game design developer, they do most of the things, and they only ask players to test the game. While in the ideal model, you would see much more engagement opportunities, much more empowerment happening, because people can decide about everything. Game design game concept, for example, what type of game we will have, theme of the game, how it would look like and feel like, and all these things. So game development process. Then game testing, which is often the most challenging one, because it is endless iterations. It takes a lot of time. Tiny feedback, tiny change might make a big impact. And then finally, when you have a game prototype tested, you produce the game, then to promote the game and use the game, so it would be sustainable and long-lasting game. So not every game end up in the full cycle, and not every team end up in full cycle. And then again, depending on the objectives, the process might be very different. Yeah. So here it is a bit color-coded, and each poster gives more details on each model way of doing. But what I like to do with you, yeah, if you got engaged in a game design experience, wherever it is yourself being a creator, or maybe you facilitated a team, I want you to find the model which best describes your experience from the perspective how much you were involved, or if you just facilitated, how much you allowed, created opportunities for involvement of people. It can be young people, can be adults. In our case, we come from youth work, we use young people, but it can be adults as well, yeah? So go look at these ones displayed here, and remember your experience, and just put perhaps your name or symbol saying, yes, I experienced this way of game design. You continue finding your place on these models, and I will tell a little bit how we see these models being useful. We hope that this helps to reflect experiences of game design and see what are the opportunities to getting involved, either yourself or the group which you are supporting, facilitating. It also helps perhaps to design more inclusive, more participatory game design processes and experiences, if that's the aim, a goal. So you can look for next practice where you say, we didn't involve people in this stage. Why don't we try out to do this? Let's see how it will benefit everyone. Yeah. It also can help to better plan game design process. If you understand that, for example, there is no time or resources or space to experience full scale of game design, you may be limited to the ones where it's realistic to do. Yeah. So you become more aware and conscious about how to use game design as a tool. And now I will just briefly share. If you want to comment anything you did on these models, I'm gladly welcoming your responses. So if you want to say a few words why you chose this model or that model, that would be great.
Okay, so I can go very briefly. I put my name twice, on the third one and on the pre-last one. So the level of participation is different in different projects. But however, we are improving in this way, so that we involved the young people since the very beginning while structuring the project, but not always is possible. So we had projects where people were only being like participating in testing phase, and that's it. And then we were receiving feedback, while we had another ones that they were participating almost since the very beginning.
Thank you. Yes, that's also good. When you have more experiences, you can also clearly see the differences in process, how it was organized, facilitated, and carried out. Thank you, Ter. Anyone else wants to comment on your choice of models? Yeah, there is a question from Monica. Aniko, what's the difference between green and the yellow model? Actually, in order to see the difference, you need to have more information about each of the models. So maybe briefly, I can share the way it looks on full posters, yeah, because that gives a fuller picture. So the way we put together these models based on interviews we made and research we made with organizations doing this. So, for example, the green difference and yellow difference would be that they are practiced in two different settings. More often, you would find formative green one practice in non-formal education setting, while a curriculum one would be more practice in formal education sector. They have slight differences in the way they are developed. So how the games are worked out. There is some difference in that. Usually in formal education sector, it would be less time allocated, but still overlapping. And who are the participants? And then the difference is also a little bit what competences, not so big difference actually, but it's mainly about the context. We found that, again, it's something to think of, yeah? We often see these sectors as separate ones, but actually through game design, it seems that it is a chance to have fairly good participatory process of game design where people learn a lot. Just what they learn might be very different. In the yellow one would be more related to curriculum, the school curriculum, while in non-formal education it would be more life themes, life topics. So I asked you to think and relate to models and introduce them. And one other tool I would like to share with you is still in process of development, and we are really looking forward to test it more in the field. It's Inclusive. It's a tool, gamified tool, which allows to somehow help measuring impact of being involved in game design. And it is designed in the form of a ship and has islands to visit and has cards to play and use. So these elements form the tool itself. So we wanted to have the tool also playful, gameful, reflecting very well the spirit of game design. Yeah. So it has a board, it has 12 inclusion competence islands, 12 token to name for the names of competence island, and then exploration cards, skills, knowledge, attitudes, and behaviors, and then a journal for participants and we see that used in 3 moments of the game design process: at the beginning, midway, and final. And it really depends how long the activity is. If it's very short, it can be a workshop on game design. Maybe you cannot really use the full potential of this tool. But if it's a longer practice of game creation, few months, you can really embed that tool inside the game design process, helping participants and facilitators to uncover what people learn and practice in terms of knowledge, skills, and attitudes while creating games. Yeah. And then where are elements, the presentation you see, you can use it. It's explained how to use where you have your focus areas of competences, secondary ones, and then by choosing who is focusing on what, again, the teams can have diverse focus and competences. They have their islands to visit in a way. And then there is more information about how to use. And if I'm allowed, Julia, can you share a few experiences of using this tool already in your context? Because you have very fresh experience.
Yes, I was about to raise my hand to offer a bit of insight. Because yes, this tool is being now finalized and developed more and more by our Spanish partner. And we in Cagliari, in Italy, we were among the first to be able to test it. And we just did it a few weeks ago. We did it during a training course on game design for inclusion within this project, and it was used during a weekend. So in very short form, it worked very, very well. We did it in 3 moments. And it's a very impactful. Participants liked it a lot and already asked us for the tool to use it in other also ways in their own practice, also outside of game design. They recognized the potential to use it in pretty much any learning process, because it's useful to assess how you develop what we call inclusive competencies. So it may be used also outside of a game design process. And it's very playful, nice to use. And we can't wait to have it finalized so we can translate it, also share it more with the world. I think it will be very useful.
Nice. So maybe if any one of you who are present at this time, if you have in your plans or you already started the process of game design, can you just reveal yourself and say, yes, we are doing that, and perhaps you would be interested to use the tool, and then we could help, because our task in this year is to find organizations which want to use the tool, and then we would help to facilitate. If not in person, we can support online, seeing what is the arrangement. So if you can share, if you do that game design process and you would like to use the tool, let us know.
Maybe I think we would be, sorry.
Oh, no, you first. Okay, well, maybe I can comment. I'm not really ready starting to developing the games, but what I recognize in the way it's built up, that you can use a formal education rubric system for making games. I see the formula right clearly. So when we are ready making our assessments with rubrics, what you should recognize, Nerijus, then there's a possibility also to create games around this rubric system.
Yeah, I think what we did also in this research, we tried to identify what social, personal, and civic competences people gain through game design process. And I think next would be to connect it to recognition. And then we start from first giving a tool to understand what I learn, what I practice, and so on. And next thing, what I'm planning to do is to connect each of the competence areas with badges and badge system, because we have a comprehensive and detailed knowledge, skills, and attitude categories, if you want. I think it's around 70 of them, but it is just too much for a brain to capture. That's why we want to make it gameful and gamified, so that people will not be stressed when they see all this tree of skills you can learn through game design. You know, that might be just too much at the start, but through the process of the journey of the ship, you can arrive to a place where you understand what you learn, and then that's linked to different rubrics, what you mentioned, I guess. Yeah.
Yes, and maybe also a bit too early. This would be really great for having like world skills events, and to give it to part of development, maybe to game design part of the academy in Rotterdam.
Well, we already participate in the skills games, of course, and we have the world skills Netherlands, and we have the world skills in Europe, and that's the physical thing that we are talking about. You know, digitalization of games online, and you know how people can do that. But that's very interesting, you know, to take parts of. You talked about the rubrics, but I think the learning outcomes are far way more interesting to talk about in the context, you know, of the game. What's the, and I mentioned not, you know, the purpose for an educational game. That's the purpose. And if you do another game at an hour, that's nice, you know, that's my enjoyment and my like. And even that can give you some skills. don't forget our project about rewarding and acknowledging the non and informal skills that are learned in total different contexts. But, you know, we have to work on that. And that's an important thing, I think, for educational development of this. Yeah, and I'm so sorry. I would like to say that Albeda was already working with gamification. Yes, we try to experience a little bit down there, but it's not really not embedded yet. So there is a lot of work to do. Yes, and I think it's really useful. It's a tool again, but you know, it's not a goal, but it's a tool that we can offer to our people, our persons. Don't talk about him or her anymore. We are all human. You know, all the discussions about that. Get rid of it. Talk about EQF. I have a level, and I'm not a higher or a lower education. Get rid of that. I'm EQF level 6. That means that I have visual and measurable behavior, which we all agreed on in the framework of the EQF. So don't call me a guy, don't call me a girl. No, I'm a person who can perform my skills, and let's make them visible, please, so I can go to a job, and not because I'm a girl, woman, black, or a girl, gender, whatever. I can do that job because I am appreciated for the skills I have. Let's do that.
So really starting point to engage in making games using that knowledge.
Sorry
Yes.
for my...
No, thank you, Wim. I think also, Mark, I think one of the goals we have with the GameOn project is actually we rely a lot on our experiences in non-formal education in youth work while using games, creating games, facilitating processes. We have that in practice, and Thea was summarizing also a lot, but we do that as our part of the job daily. But what we wanted with this project to make sure that we research our work, and then we inform our next projects with a bit of more knowledge and understanding what works in particular contexts, in particular methods we use in order to achieve great impact on people involved. So in terms of social, civic, and personal competence development. And then we want to reach out and share these practices with other educational systems, context, formats, if you want. And also third level of impact we want to reach is to showcase the more systemic policy levels that actual game design can be a powerful tool for people to learn, participate, develop critical thinking, and become better citizens, as well as people having competences which are really useful in nowadays workplaces. Creativity, ability to create, innovate, prototype, all these hard skills which you learn in a soft way if you want. So these are the three directions with Go Game On we want to reach impact. And right now, this year, we are really focusing on reaching out to different actors and players. And I'm really happy for this webinar that we already pulled together people from different contexts. All right, I would like to invite for final thoughts. We have 9 minutes remaining from the promised time, so I would not like to delay. But if you have any final thoughts, messages to share, I really invite and appreciate.
I just put maybe, yeah, sorry, yeah.
Sorry, you go. Okay, so I just wanted to have a question. The evaluation model that you presented, is it available online as well, or is it only in physical?
Yeah, for now we have a prototype version which you actually would need to print, and we thought could it be an online game sort of thing, but I think it would be for next project, because right now we are in the really early prototype phase, and we don't have a bigger ambition to create out of this a visible, playful game online or tool. But it's an idea which I think we are exploring further ideas what we can do with outcomes of this project. Yeah, but for now, you could expect have it in printed version and even perhaps translated. I think it should be translatable into Spanish if you want to use it in your context. Yeah, because we have partners from Catalonia and we use two languages, Nexus, our partners. So we use Catalan and Spanish.
That's great. Thank you so much. I think we are going to explore it together with Aida. We are now starting a project where we are planning to involve a lot of young people long term. So this is a very nice tool to recheck, to start with the evaluation and then at different points of the participation to check where they are. That's why I was asking.
Great. And I see Annika also writing, maybe having interest in this inclusive tool for heritage learning context and try to use it. So I will take a note, Annika, and reach out to you later on with more details and information how you could participate and try it out, because I will need to know your time scale, context, and so that we could align. Thank you. Any other thoughts, closing or opening thoughts? Arpi is also sharing that you are interested in specifically in the gamified tool. Okay.
Yes, yeah, inclusive. I have just one question. You mentioned several times critical thinking, and if you can say a bit about it, a bit more detailed, how it can be developed this way. So some people who are not clear on that, what you mean by that, can understand.
Good. So one thing we try to do also is to describe some concepts we use in our language. So for example, we have a special inclusion paper where every partner and also shared understanding of inclusion. So that is helping to define what do we mean by inclusion when we talk about inclusion. Yeah. And also in the guide on game design for reaching better critical thinking, we also have a chapter which explains our understanding of critical thinking, which actually brings to a set of skills, attitudes, and knowledges in practice when you think about critical thinking. So that's that. I mean, essentially, we identify areas of competences which help to become more critical thinker and practitioner in a way. Yeah. And it's not one sentence or two sentences, but it's a set of skills, knowledge, and attitudes in action.
Thank you.
An example, one could be when a team starts thinking about game concept, they can choose any theme they want to address from really pressing issues. Can be personal, can be group, can be societal, communal, and so on. So they identify pressing issues, for example, migration. And then you need to deconstruct and construct it again in order to understand what is this theme about and how to make it playful in a game experience. Yeah. So that's where critical thinking starts working really well, because it's like you take these big themes in our societies and you need to make a game out of it if you want. Yeah. All right. If that's it, again, I will follow up with an email to you who joined the webinar. Where is Julia asking short question? Will we get the link to webinar when it will be available on YouTube, or can you share where it will be posted? Already some people who couldn't be present today have asked me to, maybe that's closing what's from you, Arpi and Eti, what's coming next with this webinar and maybe the future webinars you are planning to host.
There's a question appearing from Afitab, if there's any digital games for education. So it's a PS question coming to you, Nerijus, I guess.
Yes, good. I think it's a very wide and general question. Of course, there are a lot of, but I think we need to know context and goals you want to reach and then maybe suggest. But I think also one thing what we wanted to create with GameOn is also a bit of community of people who are involved in gameplay, use game in education, and also create games. So I think it's also something what we want to see more and more in future, that people who do games as a tool and create them and facilitate these process, we also share some of the recommendations. So at least our main focus wasn't so much on digital games. I think we didn't cover digital games so far so much. So I cannot really go on, but I see already some people sharing something else. It's about next week webinar, yeah? But thank you for the question.
And you asked about the future. Yeah, we plan on to have next webinars. I know for the fact that the next webinar will be about using volunteering-based projects with disadvantaged youth, and especially sharing experiences and learnings from our project where we involved youth from 4 countries with disadvantaged background, and especially Hungary and Roma, and foster home youth in a longer-term volunteering project. And we have quite some new learnings and things to share, so it will be more of an interactive webinar. And we invite our colleagues to share their learnings. And we have some other treasure also in the future as experts and organizations from the field of youth work, mental health, and other related topics. But we will keep you posted on our social media pages. Do you want to say anything else, Nerijus, as a final word?
Just look through some windows in your rooms and you still have light, and it's getting darker and darker in my side. So it's late evening already for me. So thank you very much for being and participating, and let's keep in touch and continue sharing good practices. Thank you for opportunity.
Yeah. Thank you, Nerijus, for bringing all this experience and knowledge and spreading all this valuable resource around. And thank you, everyone, for coming here and sharing this time with us. Have a great evening. Bye.
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 Thank you for being here. This webinar was co-funded by the European Union. If you're interested in similar content, follow our channels or have a look at the webpage of our international partnership, The Future is Youth. If you find our work useful and inspiring, you can support us by feedback or donations. As an NGO, we are grateful for any type of support.